Hi there, it's Nicole here with some liquid masking for this cute little birthday scene card. This stamp set is a limited edition exclusive for Simon Says STAMPtember from Poppy Stamps called Magical Wishes. And it's these adorable little fairies. There's the lantern, moon, some clouds even, stars, a magic wand, and then 4 different greetings. So super cute. What I wanted to do was try something a little different with masking, at least new to me, where I'm going to kind of lay everything out. There's not a ton of overlap in this card design, so without inking the background, I really wouldn't need any masks, or full masks anyway, but I do want to ink the background. So what I did was I kind of laid out all my stamps, and then I'm stamping them using my MISTI so I can make sure and get some really good stamped impressions. The lantern does sort of look like he's kind of hanging out here in the middle of the page. So stick with me because I will fix that kind of near the end. But I want to fill my lantern with the candle, and then I want all 3 of the fairies from the Poppy Stamps Magical Wishes stamp set to be flying around. I've left room for it because I did lay it out so I could kind of gauge where I wanted it to go, but I'm going to stamp the sentiment after I have done all of this work. I did stamp the little stars here, but they really get lost. I did not add the masking fluid to this, so they get lost in the inking, and a way to fix that and get around that is I'm going to go over it in a little bit. So this Molotow, I think that's how you say it, pen, is a liquid masking, and it's got this little bullet tip, and you basically just kind of color over any area that you want masked, meaning anything that I do not want the ink to get on, I am coloring with this masking pen. I have tried a couple of different liquid masking products previously, and I've never shared a video with them because I didn't like the results. I don't know if it was the paper I was using. I don't know if the liquid masking agent I was using wasn't good. I don't know. I just never had good results. I was always so super excited about it, and it never panned out, and I was always super bummed. So, long story short, I got this pen, and I thought I'm going to give it another try because I've been doing so many different masking type cards, and I really think this is a technique that is fantastic if you don't have to create any paper masks, even if you had to create some. This just saves a ton of time for fussy cutting. The only thing is I let this sit and dry for about 20 minutes. I'm not even really sure the recommended amount of time. I just made sure that it was dry to the touch, and I set my little timer on my watch, 20 minutes. I came over and I started inking it up with Peacock Feathers, Wilted Violet, and Black Soot Distress Oxide inks. Now this looks super messy. Doesn't look very good with the 3 colors like that. I definitely need to go back over them, blend them one into another, get a really nice seamless blend, but I want it to have this peacock feather circle with a wilted violet outer circle and then kind of the black. I did go ahead and spritz this with water. This is something that doesn't always work real good with paper masks because the water goes through it. And then really to totally show you what this masking fluid can do, I watered down some Picket Fence White Distress ink, and I am flicking it all over the surface, just using a small paintbrush here. A lot of it's going to kind of absorb into the background, so I might go over that again here in a little bit. I also want to use some of the pewter here, the silver paint. I love this. I'm going to spritz this all over here. I think this is the brushed pewter. Same thing, watered it down, flicked it all over the surface, added a little bit more white, and again, I'm going to set my timer. I think I probably worked on a blog post or something for about 20 minutes or so, letting that paint dry before I come back to it. You really, really at this point need to make sure that the ink is dry. Once it's dry, and you can see I tested it out. I moved a little bit off and I started coloring, but I am going to use my finger and rub that away. And then I even used the Tombow Mono eraser, and I felt like that was a little bit easier on my fingers. I was just kind of gentle with it, and it kind of helped move some of that masking agent away with that too. But it just gums up, rolls off, and moves off of the paper. Now, I did think there was a little bit of residue. I don't know if it's the paper I used. I don't know if I maybe should have colored the images before I put the masking fluid on it. I really didn't want to color it prior to doing this, simply because I didn't want to mess it up and have spent all that time coloring. But I really felt like I was able to disguise any of those little marks that maybe went through. I know that what I probably needed to do was those paint flecks. I needed to wipe those off of the masking kind of carefully after I did them. I think that was maybe the worst thing that I did there. But like I said, once I color in all of these images, I had no problem with any of the residue that may have been left. At least it didn't bother me. And I think in the finished card, you really, if I didn't point it out, it's not that noticeable. I am coloring in everything with Copic markers. You could use whatever you want. I kind of felt like for this card, I like the intensity of Copics. Since I did use Neenah smooth white cardstock, this is the 110 pound weight cardstock, so it's nice and heavyweight. It's perfect for Copic markers or other alcohol ink markers. Colored pencils would have been fantastic too. I simply chose the markers because of the intensity of the color, especially against that distress inked background. Now the eyes did, I think when I erased a little bit, I think it made them light. So I went over them with a black fine tip pen, and I added some little eyelashes to these cute little fairy girls because I thought they needed some. The lantern I'm going to color kind of in shades of gray. I want it to look like this kind of dark lantern. And I purposely did not add the masking fluid inside of the lantern. I put it on the candle, but not anywhere else because I want it to appear to be glass, that you're looking through this to the, other side of the lantern. That was very, very purposeful when I did that. I knew I wanted to put glossy accents to make it quote unquote glass. And so I wanted to see that distress inked background behind it. Now, I'm going to do something kind of crazy here. I was in a time crunch when I did this project. And like I said, I knew I wanted to add glossy accents. And the problem with that is it's kind of a bigger area. It's not just a few little drops. So I went ahead and colored in the lantern, and I'm going to add glossy accents at this point. I tried to add some polka dots to my candle. That did not work. I went over it with a yellow marker. So once I have this completely colored, I'm even going to add a little bit of a glow back behind the candle. I started to add the glossy accents and I realized I wanted a little bit of a yellow glow coming up. I'm going to put that layer of glossy accents all over the glass area of this lantern, and I'm going to let it start drying while I color the rest of the images. I don't suggest this normally. For me, this was only because I needed to video this and get it done before I went to my daughter's volleyball game. And I needed it to start to dry so that in between games, I could run home and photograph the card while there was still some natural light. I am listing the colors for the dresses. They are all very, very similar. Two of the dresses have a little bit of green in them. One does not. All of the wings were the same. I just mixed up the hair on the three fairies. I contemplated making all of their outfits different, but they're such small little areas and that background is so dramatic that I thought the pink popped so well. I was really afraid to use a different color combination. So I kind of just stuck with what worked the first time. I'm being kind of careful, flipping my paper around while I'm working just to keep my hand out of that glossy accents. This was kind of nerve-wracking doing it this way because I normally do not. Now I forgot to color in the top of the lantern, so I will have to go back and do that. I promise I do. And again, it is still looking like it's hanging out there. There's a couple ways you could fix this. You could draw in a line to make it appear like it's hanging or coming in from the top. I wanted to actually add a dimensional embellishment, something that was still fairly flat, so I'll show you that in a little bit. I'm going to take a white opaque pen now. The stars that I was talking about earlier when I stamped them and then started inking over them just disappeared when I added the inking. I did not mask them, and so because I didn't mask them, there was nothing to rub away. There's nothing to color, and they're so teeny tiny. I was really thinking the masking fluid maybe wouldn't work for that. I could definitely try it at another time and maybe see, but I kind of really ended up liking coloring over all of those images with my white pen. It blends into the background really nicely. While I have my white pen out, I'm going to put some little highlights here and there all over my lantern, over the girls' fairy costumes, the moon. Just add some nice little white highlights. The fairy wings and the moon all have Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen on them to give them a little bit of glitter. Here's the top of that lantern so it isn't standing out and looking so crazy. Really like how the lantern turned out. It turned out way better than I thought it might. So that was kind of a happy accident. My glossy accents is still drying. I am going to very carefully stamp my greeting down here where I've left room for it using Versamark ink, sprinkle on white embossing powder, and heat set it. So I kind of was super careful with all of these steps. Normally, I would suggest doing everything else first, then going and adding your glossy accents as the very, very last thing. The white embossing against this dark sky is one of my favorite things. I love white embossing anyway. It's probably my all-time favorite. And I love how it looks against this distress inked sky. Isn't that a fun card? Wouldn't a little girl or even an older girl like this card for your birthday? I just think it's really, really fun. I absolutely love it. So I'm going to let my glossy accents completely dry and come back to this, and I ended up trimming down my panel just a little bit. I wanted to have a white border all the way around. It's absolutely okay to trim through those fairies. It actually helps ground the scene so that it appears that everything isn't just kind of floating out in outer space. The lantern is slightly off center. That's on purpose. I didn't want it exactly in the center of the card, and I did have to kind of pop my panel up because I forgot to hang my lantern, but this is just some really thin gold embroidery floss that I used a needle to thread it through, and then I'm going to tie it in a little knot, hide the knot back behind this panel. For whatever reason, this little knot gave me some trouble, but I got it. Any little thin string or embroidery floss would work fantastic for this, and it automatically grounds the whole card design. It doesn't make it look like that lantern is just hanging out there in outer space. I also think that it would be really cute to maybe like set everything up on a counter, and you could use this lantern and fill it with things. One of my first ideas was to put one of the fairies inside, kind of like Tinkerbell gets trapped inside of the lantern in Peter Pan. That was one of my other ideas that I thought would be really cute with this stamp set as well. I'm adding little dabs of glossy accents all over the background, adding some iridescent Pretty Pink Posh star confetti to finish it off, and my card featuring the Poppy Stamp STAMPtember Magical Wishes stamp set is all finished. Thanks for joining me today for this card featuring masking fluid. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.